Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. So, obviously I haven't been streaming for a while. I'm told audio is good. I'm told video is good. Got only a few folks over there on the unauthorized chat. I think people are watching Owen right now instead. Can hardly blame them. He's been on fire lately. That's gotten cold. Anyhow, so the reason that I haven't been streaming is because I'm glad to be able to announce that I am finished with the first draft of the final A Sea of Skulls. The complete version, 295,000 plus words. So that's, depending on how they get laid out, somewhere between 850 and 900 pages. And I'm going to be getting that out, I believe, probably early next week to the early readers. And we'll take the time to, fix whatever infelicities and incongruities and so forth are there. And, it shouldn't be, I don't know how quickly we'll get it out in print. I usually like to have a few iterations of the ebook out, just so we can get them as correct, get it corrected good. I think we're up to round 10 on A Throne of Bones. And so, anyhow, it'll go out to the early readers next week. They'll need a little bit of time to read it, obviously. And then we'll get the changes incorporated. But I would anticipate that the final ebook will go out to everyone before the end of September. Would be my best time frame. So, for those of you who wanted to reread A Throne of Bones, or maybe even Summa and A Throne of Bones before diving back into A Sea of Skulls, this is your sign to get started. I've kept all of the emails from those who purchased the short edition. Short edition, it's like 400 and some pages. But anyhow, everybody who purchased that on Amazon and sent me the email, we will. I'll be sending the full EPUB out to you. Chad says, "This is great news. Who will read for the audiobook?" Well, I wouldn't have anyone else read it. So Jeremy he's already read over half of it. So as soon as he's one of the very first people to get it. So it'll be another 30 plus hour extravaganza. It might interest you to know, I looked this up just because I was kind of curious, and obviously having more words or whatever doesn't make it a better book or anything like that. If that's true, George R.R. Martin is still the well in the lead. But I thought it was interesting to note that the Arts of Dark and Light are now 493,000 words. And to put that in perspective, the entire Lord of the Rings plus The Hobbit plus the Silmarillion is 706,574 words. So that's kind of interesting. Naturally, this is kind of funny. People have been waiting 10 years for A Sea of Skulls. naturally somebody has to leap in and say, any update on the junior classics? Anyhow, seriously, if you ever want to know why writers sometimes have a negative attitude about their fans and stuff, that would be why. You can literally work on something for 10 years and uh, you know 2 minutes after you do an update on it, somebody asks you, okay, that's great, but what about this? um, you know uh, Karen took the kids, read the freaking email updates. We send them out. You know, I mean, there's updates on the blog. There's updates on Social Galactic. You know, it, it might help to pay attention to those things if you want to know. Anyhow, uh, volume seven's done. Volume eight's done. We're basically just waiting for the the cover design images from Lacey, and she's already working on them, and uh, so they'll be out reasonably soon. I mean, they'll definitely be out before Christmas. That's 7 and 8, 9 and 10 in the spring. ID Prism says, but do you have a massive repository of notes that your children can publish for decades? No, I do not. That's not how I work. And let's face it, uh, nobody except Tolkien has ever successfully worked that way. You might have people who have a lot of notes, but then they don't really write anything. Um, I'm afraid that what comes out is pretty much it. But, you know, I'm only in my mid 50s. We're not done with it yet. There's at least one more Selenoth book to come. And, you know, why not go for 1 million words, huh? Um, but I do think it's interesting to consider the the word counts of some of the other stuff that's out there. So um, now George R. R. Martin's work, even though he's almost certainly never going to finish it, it really is an impressive amount of work. The entire Song of Ice and Fire series so far is 1,770,000 words. That's a million more words than the Arts of Dark and Light. That's pretty impressive. Um, the word counts of the Harry Potter series is 1,084,000 words. Of course, I don't think J.K. Rowling wrote much of that um, beyond probably Goblet of Fire, but I could be wrong. Uh, I tend to agree that that's not just one person's work. It doesn't read like one person's work. Um, and a lot of the most important, biggest works of fiction, some are quite small, especially in some of the different genres. But let's see, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, 110,000 words. Black Beauty is 60,000. Um, Sun Also Rises, 68,000. Um, Now, some of the great novels are quite big. Les Miserables is 530,000. War and Peace, 560,000. I never realized that Memoirs of a Geisha was so big. It was 186,000, about the same as Jane Eyre. Um, I also didn't realize Catch 22 was that long, but I mean, it felt longer, you know. Um, but anyhow, uh, and then of course, the Chronicles of Narnia are quite short. The shortest one is the original Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, 38,000 words. So there's no the fact that something is longer does not necessarily mean it's better, but it does mean that you have, you know, more to read. You know, I like, I just read a Murakami book is not really the right word. I mean, it is a book, but it's basically a collection of a series of interviews about his t-shirts. And of course, because it's, it's because it's Murakami, so he's always got something interesting to say, you know? But, he says, my timing for the question was horrific, but not intentional. My apologies. Oh, it's fine. You know, it's just, as a general rule, when you come into the stream, don't ask questions right away. You know, even if you have a question, you like, just, you know, read the room, figure out what people are talking about before you just, you know, leap in. And that's not a good rule for the dark streams. That's a good rule for any social situation. You know, just walking into a room and blurting out what's ever on your mind is not a recipe for social success. It's you know, in in a situation like this, it's a bit of a buzzkill, right? But anyhow, you know, I mean, to be honest, I have tremendous sympathy for George R. R. Martin, despite the fact that, you know, he can't stand me, because I think that he wrote himself into a corner. And if you look at the sheer volume of words that he wrote and the multiplicity of perspective characters that he has, you know, it's not hard to see the problem. It's not hard to see why he's having a tough time. He's probably written a ton of words that haven't been published, but he hasn't figured out how. You know, my guess is that he keeps introducing new characters and broadening the story when he needs to be, you know, sharpening it. He needs to be bringing it to a conclusion, or, you know, start pointing it to a conclusion. And it's a difficult thing to do, especially, I mean, there's a reason why there are so few epic writers. There's a reason why there are so few writers of epics. It's much, much easier to write multiple short stories or multiple short novels. You know, the Legend is a master of this. You know, the three Conan novels he's written, he's ripped off in just, you know, it's a total of like 90,000 words. They're short novels, but, you know, there's a beginning, a middle, a conclusion, and an end. You know, nice story arc, very satisfying. The problem is, the bigger the story, the more complicated the interweavings of the storylines and so forth, the more difficult it gets. Is Conan an alpha or a sigma? Conan's obviously an alpha. Everywhere he goes, people follow him. You know, I mean, there's a sigma aspect to him in that he can't hang on to anything for long. But I mean, there's a superficially sigma aspect in that he's always moving on, but that's just because he can't hang on to what he's got. You know, he's ultimately a gambler, and a gambler who pushes everything back onto the table every time is eventually going to lose. So, you know, that's that's my interpretation. But of course, the funny thing is when you say is Conan alpha or a sigma, the correct answer would actually be which Conan. Is it, uh, what's his name? L whatever. I want to say L. Ron Hubbard, but that's not right. Um, the guy who wrote the Conan pastiches in the 80s. Is it the original Howard Conan? Uh, is it Chuck Dixon's Conan? Is it Savage Sword of Conan? You know, there's so many Conans. How do you say? Was Tolstoy an alpha? I don't I don't know. Um, I think it's a mistake. It's usually a mistake to try to identify somebody solely by their writing. You know, you need to know about the actual person as well. So, I mean, sometimes you can tell. You know, no one's going to read Scalzi and go, "Gee, this guy's really alpha." You know, it's pretty obvious. Um, yeah, Detective Conan. It's always kind of funny to me how they take these characters and then they just put them into new genres, different genres. I mean, why not romance novel Conan? Uh, Amazon dinosaur harem Conan. Inquisitor Bear is right, though. It is hard to believe Conan was written by a man who killed himself because his mother died. Well, yeah, I mean, it's so contrary to what we read of his ideas that it makes you wonder if he might be a uh, a gamma and Conan is just gamma wish fulfillment. That's something that has to be considered too. Larry Dynamite Bear is absolutely right. He says Chuck Dixon's channel is fun. Also, Razorfist's DS9 retrospective series. Well, I suspect that Razor's got one hell of a rant on the Trump mugshot, which I will mention because it's also on the theme of what's done is done. I'm going to mention two other things. We'll segue here. For the benefit of those who came in late, I just announced that I finished the first draft of A Sea of Skulls, and we're going to be getting it out to the early readers next week. So um, I think that you can I think that you can anticipate getting the EPUB version um, before the end of September, and that's a pretty reasonable estimate. We shouldn't have too much trouble hitting that. Um, Anyhow, so about the mugshot, I think the thing that we do need to keep in mind is that without getting too addicted to the copium or the hopium, keeping in mind that hopium is hope is a virtue, but we have been disappointed before. Uh, there is a lot of high weirdness going on right now, and there are some indications from what we're seeing is that some of the stuff that was hinted at by Q appears to be in some form possibly taking shape. We all assumed from the beginning that the arrest that would shock the world would be Trump's arrest. He's now been arrested. There's the 4 indictments. Still don't really understand why it was necessary to go through it 4 times, but there's those up on the blog. You can see those old posts talking about how there wouldn't be any 5, and there's even a reference to end, which appears to have been made in that Trump tweet. Now, I mean, to be honest, I'm just as sick of all of this, uh, pseudo prophecy and numerology combined with uh, evolutionary astrology or whatever else it is. But what we can say is that a lot of evil has been directly exposed in the world since Trump failed to cross the Rubicon. And so Idaho Crusader said, "So what are we hoping for Q to accomplish?" Well, first of all, there's no we. I don't know what you're hoping. What you're hoping is probably different than what I'm hoping, right? Save America? I thought, okay, here's the thing. Learn to stop talking like that, okay? I mean, do you understand what a whiny gamma child that sounds like? So, what are we hoping for Q to accomplish? Save America? I thought that was impossible. Yes, it is impossible to save. Well, no, it's not impossible to save America. It is impossible to save the United States as a unitary political entity. You know, whatever happens, it is highly unlikely that the United States will remain a unitary political entity. I expect, as I've said for, you know, what is it now, nearly 20 years, I expect it to be breaking apart before 2033. That's just demographics at this point. But what we are hoping for is the destruction of A, the U.S. deep state, B, the whatever you want to call it, Globo Homo, Neoconnery, Clown World, Cabal, you know, the surveillance state, Ameristasi, you know, all of the anti-American, anti-Christian, satanic shadow government that has, you know, methodically destroyed America. That's what we'd like to see Trump handle. That's what we'd like to see him break. That's what he claims. He claims he's going to dismantle the deep state if he's elected in 2024. Will he? I don't know. Swiss Axe Bear sends a super chat, says, "I enjoy your streams, Vox." Thank you. You are welcome, Swiss Axe Bear. Appreciate it. Could Hawaii be one of the first states to leave? Well, I'm sure they'd like to. Would the end of Clown World end income tax? Probably not, because, you know, most governments need to be funded, and income tax is a not completely unreasonable way to do it. Three Sevens put it probably better than I did. The hope among Q followers is a turning of the tide. Right. I mean, and the tide is turning. The pendulum is swinging back. We are currently at all-time historic extremes of immorality, Satanry, and evil. You know, and it doesn't. It's not going to stay that way. It never does. The pendulum is going to swing back. I think the pendulum is swinging back. You know, I mean, as recently as 3 years ago, everybody, including me, believed in the power of the U.S. military. Nobody does anymore. Why do you think 6 more countries joined BRICS yesterday? And even more are trying to apply. They had to come out, BRICS had to come out and say, if you have any sanctions on a BRICS member, you cannot join. Think about the significance of that. Why did they have to say that? Because some of the countries, I don't know if it's France or Italy or who, but some of the countries are saying, hey, we don't want to be left out of BRICS. And BRICS is saying, well, you can't be part of the Western attack on Russia or China, or you don't get to play the sanctions games and still be part of our reindeer games. You know, Wilson Bear sends a super chat. Could another contested election finish off the color revolution? Yes, definitely. Swiss Expert sends another one. What would replace the system? Could be anything. I mean, there's multiple different systems in BRICS. The Russian system is very, very different than the Chinese system, both of which are very different than the Brazilian system. I mean, that's the whole point of BRICS, is not to replace it with a singular system. It's to get away from a unitary global system. Is this more of a social moral change or financial or both? Well, I mean, this is fundamentally a structural change, political change. I mean, which means financial as well. Ladumba says not only is the tide turning, but 10 to 15% of the U.S. population believes the world is governed by satanic pedophiles. That happened after Q. Yeah, most definitely. So, Cliff Cosmic said it would be hilarious if the Confederacy came back just to join BRICS. Yeah. Will China take Australia? If it has to. I don't think that that is in the short-term plan. But if Australia goes to war with China on behalf of Clown World, then I believe China will do it. But I don't think that Japan will go to war with China. They know that's not going to end well for them. The big, we've already seen potentially a big shift just this week when the U.S. tried to practice gunboat diplomacy in the Red Sea, and the Iranians pseudo-attacked them with essentially a ship swarm, a ship and drone swarm. And it was very clear that if they had wanted to, they could have easily sunk the 2 U.S. Navy ships. Maybe people are taking it seriously. Maybe they're still ignoring it, but I know that we know the smarter sort of strategists, even in the West, are paying attention to this and realizing that all of their previous power calculations are wrong. Just yesterday, the think tank that does an annual report on how strong the various militaries are, and they said that the Russian military is equal to the U.S. military, and the Chinese military is just a fraction behind the U.S. So what that means is that the Sino-Russian alliance is nearly twice as powerful as the U.S. military. That's a very, very different change in perspective. So, Shadow Mind Bear sends a generous super chat. Thank you. BRICS seems to have an advantage against Global Homo. Well, they do. And that advantage is the Russian and Chinese militaries. The Russian military controls Europe, and the Chinese military prevents the U.S. Navy from controlling the sea. So, that's the big. That's the most crude advantage, but beyond that, who wants to defend Clown World? The Ukrainians were dumb enough to do it. The Poles might be, but that's pretty much it. You're not going to get Americans to fight against the Russians. You're definitely not going to get Americans to fight against the Chinese. Why the fuck should we lift a finger for the people that are doing their damnedest to destroy our people, our culture, our faith, and to impoverish the entire American posterity. There's no chance. You know, there is no us anymore. You know, I mean, I met some very nice, um, uh, very well-off professional Muslims from New York recently. Good people, nice people. I genuinely like them. But, you know, the idea that they would lift a finger for Clown World to defend America against Chinese dominance there's no chance. They're not about that. They're in the United States because it's of benefit to them. It's treated them well. They're doing well. They do their thing. They're not harming anyone. But it's not the historic nation. You know, and whether you're talking about, you know, professional H-1Bs from India in the executive suite, or you're talking about, you know, low-level MI-13 gangbangers from Guatemala, they don't care about the Holocaust. They don't care about Uncle Sam and Tell It to the Marines and all this stuff. They're a different people, a different nation. You know, and so the state, the country of the United States, is very, very fragile and very, very weak. Inquisitor Bear says, do you think they have any kind of plan to get young white men into this fight? Well, I think they'd like to, but the problem is they really can't because their values prevent that. Their values are focused on, you know, turning women into men, turning men into women, and that sort of thing. And that it's, you know, what's the lesson of SJWs always lie, or of corporate cancer? Once converged, an institution can't perform its functions. The U.S. Army is converged, ergo it cannot perform its functions. Static says, isn't it interesting how Vivek Ramaswamy used to be funded by Soros, and now he's railing against China on the primary debate stage? Yeah, in other words, he's still being funded by Soros, or at least he's doing what Soros wants him to. Will the Hispanic form a new country or merge with Mexico? I think you'll see both. I think you'll see Mexico reclaim some of its historic lands, and I think that you'll see I think you'll see the you know, the sort of mixed Latino diaspora possibly separating from Mexico as well. Inquisitor Bear says, but the higher up, smarter Jews know that the tranny stuff is just smoke and mirrors and they actually need white men. No, Inquisitor Bear, don't bear post. Don't say obviously stupid things. The tranny stuff is what matters to them. Do you not get that? That's their religion. That's what their God of this world wants them to do. So you have it completely backwards. You know, yes, there are no doubt plenty of smarter clown world servants who are saying, well, you know, we really need to kind of, you know, slow the roll on this tranny thing because we need we need straight white soldiers, and their bosses are saying, I don't care, you know, this is what we're doing, figure it out. You know, you can't, um, you don't know what their priorities are. It should be very obvious from repeated observation that they don't care about what you think they logically should care about. That's like saying, well, Disney's not going to make another gay hero because if they make a gay hero, they're going to lose money. I mean, they did it the last 17 times, so they won't do it the 18th time because they know they need to have a straight white male hero if they want to make money. And then the next movie comes out, and, you know, it's a gay Latinx minor superhero that nobody outside of the comic book stores has ever heard of. And surprise, surprise, it fails. You know, it's all about those rich men north of Richmond. Inquisitor Bear says, true, maybe I'm looking at it from my own point of view. You are. You know, you that's the point is, I mean, why do you think Sun Tzu said the most important thing is to understand your enemy? If you understand yourself, but you don't understand your enemy, you're going to lose 50% of the time. That's what you're doing. You understand a logical perspective here, but you refuse to accept that they're not logical by your standard, which you already know they're not logical by your standard. So if you know they're not logical by your standard, why do you expect them to be logical about any given situation? They're not. Manuel points out that Niger, that's the safest way to say it, Niger just told the U.S. ambassador he's got 48 hours to get. Yeah, and they already kicked out the French ambassador. So I believe Niger probably got whatever assurance it needs from Russia or Wagner or whatever private mercenary company they're working with. That or ECOWAS has come out and said, you know, we don't actually want to fight. You know, it's kind of funny too because the U.S. has totally refused to admit that anything's going on with Niger because they want because they want. I just spaced for a second there. Oh, that's right. The U.S. can't declare what's going on and call it a coup and all that sort of thing because there's a law that would force them to withdraw the base there. So, you know, once more, we're just seeing double think and double talk out of the neocons. And you know it's serious because they've already sent Victoria Nuland there. Exterminator Bear says, to quote a friend's daughter, I don't think you're saying it correctly. Perhaps not. You know, it might be. I mean, I've seen the term Nigerois, which tends to indicate a French pronunciation, but I don't know that I've had conversations with French speakers about it. I don't know that I've actually talked to anyone in English about it. So that may be why I have it wrong, if I have it wrong. What do they say, Niger? That seems a little bit difficult just with Niger and Nigeria, but anyhow, not my problem. Larry Dynamite Bear says, if I purchase European style cider, is it meant to be consumed at room temperature? Not that I've ever had. I've always had it cold. Thoughts on the Prigozhin situation? I think he's probably alive, and I think his assassination was faked. As soon as I heard about, oh, there's a second plane and a body double and blah blah blah, I'm like, he's he's probably not dead. He could be, but I don't know. Cliff Cosmic says, I get frustrated when my bosses make dumb choices. Can't imagine what it's like for the saner elites. Oh yeah, I'm sure that. Well, that's where we might get into the interesting thing. People have said, the darker conspiracies about the vax. They've said, well, why would they kill off the compliant? Maybe because they're stupid. You know, I mean, there's a very, very, uh, up on poll. There's a very, very dark conspiracy theory that's talking about how this new strain of COVID that they're talking up is actually going to take out pretty much everybody who's got 4 or more shots. It's not going to harm it's not going to harm the unvaccinated. It's probably not going to harm. It's not probably going to be as anywhere nearly as harmful to those who have fewer shots. I don't know whether it's true, but a cursory look into what they were talking about, what did actually hold up in terms of the fact that it had, after 4 shots, and hundreds of days after the 4th shot, the human body still had a significant amount of this particular substance that would permit another COVID-style coronavirus to not meet any immune response. So, and then right after this came this CDC announcement that the vaxxed are more susceptible. So hopefully it's not that bad, but we'll see. Wilson Bear sends a super chat. Do you think the Boers survive? Yes, but not in South Africa necessarily. Larry Dynamite Bear sends a super chat saying they killed Prigozhin so they could stop faking his appearances. I don't know. I mean, maybe they just wanted to shut him up for a while. Maybe they want to keep him around. I mean, the thing is, there's absolutely no point in trying to figure that out. If he pops up again in 6 months, then we'll know it was faked. If 3 years from now, Russia's defeated NATO and he still hasn't, and the U.S. and French and have been kicked out of Africa, and he still hasn't surfaced, well, then he probably was killed. We should never expect to hear all the answers, to know all the answers. So, Swedish Trash Panda says, unvaxxed, I've likely had COVID 3+ times, 2 of which I had the COVID voice. That virus don't scare me anymore. Yeah, I mean, I had COVID and I slept a lot for 2 days and then I was fine. It was nothing. I've not only had worse flus, most flus I've had were worse. C'est la vie. But we know from what's happened in Maui. We know what's from all these things that are happening. That a lot of stuff is going on behind the scenes that we can't possibly grasp the point from the outside. So be patient. Be practical. Swiss Expert sends a super chat. Would we see lockdowns or anything like 2020 now? Yes, definitely. I think that if there's another COVID epidemic among the vaxxed, then we will see lockdowns. You know, that's going to be their response now every single time. People went along with it. They will keep trying to do that until people stop going along with it. Exterminator Bear says something that we've been talking about for a long time. My chiropractor tells me he knows so many patients that had cancer in remission, got the shot, shortly after died of cancer. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty clear that it has an accelerant effect on cancer, especially those who are in remission from it. So that's why we've said on this stream in the past, if you're vaxxed and you ever had cancer before, go in and get it checked now. Do not wait. You know, if they wait that long, then long enough for them to be sure something's wrong, it's probably too late. Do you think compliance is heavily influenced by intelligence or no? No, I don't. I know very, very smart people who are 100% compliant, and I know people who I don't consider to be even midwits who see right through it and wouldn't ever consider having gotten it. So anyhow, on that note, that's all I've got for now, but thanks for tuning in. First draft of A Sea of Skulls is done. We will keep you posted on that, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on with the arrested, mug-shotted president. So, I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.